The board meeting will begin in 5 minutes. Okay, the board meeting will begin in 1 minute. If you could please take your seats.
This chair is really high and I can't adjust it.
That's the one you took from yesterday.
No, I think it's not.
Okay.
But you can't adjust it. I figured this out.
Good morning, Dr. Maher. Okay. The April 4th State Board meeting will now come to order. Good morning and welcome to the April 4th, 2025 State Board of Education meeting. Board members, please engage your microphones before speaking and turn them off when you're finished speaking. Please note that board members may be using their cell phones and laptop computers to access the agenda and information related to this meeting. Live streaming is available through the State Board of Education website. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Kristen Christensen,
Here.
Maggie Douglas,
Here.
Lisa Schoenhoff,
Here.
Liz Renner, Kirk Penner,
Here.
Sherry Jones,
Here.
Elizabeth Tegmeyer,
Here.
Deborah Neri,
Here.
Commissioner Maher,
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Quorum is established. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Information regarding the Open Meetings Act is posted as you enter the room from the main entrance doors. The Open Meetings Act is also posted on the State Board of Education's website. Indy East staff member Derek Ippenson and Nebraska School Liaisons Tina Lunderman and Jenny Miller, please join us at the front of the room for a special presentation.
Good morning. Thank you. Derek Ippenson. I'm the Assistant Administrator in the Office of Coordinated School and District Support and the Director of Accountability. I'll let these two fine folks introduce themselves.
My name is Jennifer Miller, and I'm the school liaison at the Offutt Air Force Base.
My name is Tina Luderman, and I'm the other school liaison at Offutt Air Force Base. And together, we help families arrive at Offutt Air Force Base when they have any military connections.
Thank you. Thanks you for joining us today. Maggie, would you please read our resolution?
I'd be happy to. Resolution to proclaim April 2025 as Month of the Military Child and April 23rd, 2025 as Purple Up for Military Kids Day. Whereas more than 12,000 Nebraskans exhibit profound courage and selflessness in serving America's armed forces. Whereas Nebraska's schools serve nearly 3,000 military-connected students. Whereas military-connected children have been found to change schools up to 9 times between kindergarten and high school and face other unique challenges related to military parental deployment. Whereas the Nebraska Department of Education recognized 56 Purple Star schools which created or strengthened programs and supports for military-connected students. Whereas the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission, of which Nebraska is a proud member, recognizes April as Month of the Military Child. And whereas the Month of the Military Child provides an opportunity to salute our military-connected children and acknowledge the sacrifices made by military families worldwide, with an emphasis on the experiences and needs of the children of military members serving at home and overseas, now, therefore, be it resolved, the Nebraska State Board of Education extends its profound gratitude for the veterans, active duty, and reserve members of the armed forces and their families for the sacrifices they make daily. Resolved that the Nebraska State Board of Education recognizes April 2025 as Month of the Military Child. Resolved, the Nebraska State Board of Education recognizes April 23rd, 2025 as Purple Up for Military Kids Day and encourages students, educators, and the public to wear purple in support of military-connected children. And resolved, the State Board of Education directs the Nebraska Department of Education to continue building coalitions to raise awareness for, support, and advocate for military-connected children and their unique needs. And then signed on behalf of the Nebraska State Board of Education this 4th day of April, 2025.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? Is that you?
I move to adopt the resolution declaring April, oh, sorry, that is not mine.
Is there another motion
That one's not right.
to adopt the resolution?
I move to proclaim April 2025 as the Month of the Military Child and April 23rd, 2025 as Purple Up for Military Kids Day, and to adopt the resolution.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to proclaim April 2025 as the month of the military child and April 23rd, 2025 as Purple Up for Military Kids Day and to adopt the resolution. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, seeing none. The motion is to proclaim April 2025 as the month of the military child and April 23rd, 2025 as Purple Up for Military Kids Day and adopt the resolution. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Douglas,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the resolution is adopted. We'll just pause for just a moment while I pass the resolution to our representatives. NDE staff members Lane Carr and Jessica Jaworski, please join us at the front of the room for a special presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Lane Carr from the Office of Policy and Strategic Initiatives in our Commissioner's Office, and I'm excited to share a very brief introduction to this resolution on Apprenticeship Day. Apprenticeship Day will be at the end of this month, and we're really excited about the growth of apprenticeships in Nebraska to support our teachers and the potential that it poses for other fields within education. We've expanded our partnerships with the Nebraska Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor, community colleges, and universities around the state. And in June, we are hoping to bring more of this to light with you and share some of the stories. I do want to share and recognize the great apprenticeship staff that we have here at the NDE. They're back in the back of the room. Kelly, Keisha, and Cole, who are doing extraordinary work, building really strong programs that are models for our country. So thank you for the opportunity to recognize the apprentices that are in our schools today, the colleges that are partnering, the districts that are partnering, and our staff that's doing really great work.
Sherry, would you read the resolution?
Yes, you bet. Whereas National Apprenticeship Day is celebrating its 11th anniversary of providing opportunities to showcase and celebrate the accomplishment of apprentices, educators, employers, and community partners across Nebraska and nationwide. Whereas the Nebraska Department of Education has sponsored a registered apprenticeship program for pre-K through 12 teachers and principals since 2023. Whereas apprenticeships offer a unique and effective pathway to gain hands-on experience and in-demand skills, blending on-the-job training with academic instruction and ensuring that individuals across Nebraska are better prepared for rewarding careers that support our communities. Whereas teacher-registered apprenticeship programs serve as a vital pathway to develop highly skilled educators and leaders to address the critical workforce needs in Nebraska's education system. Whereas these apprenticeship programs support the state of Nebraska's commitment to expanding educational opportunities by providing on-the-job training, mentorship, and credentials that prepare teachers for long-term success in serving students across the state. And whereas the Nebraska Department of Education has partnered with national leaders such as the National Center for Grow Your Own, which has supported the development of teacher apprenticeships in 30-plus states to incorporate best practices from across the country into teacher training. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Nebraska Department of Education, on behalf of the state of Nebraska, does hereby proclaim April 30th, 2025 as National Apprenticeship Day in Nebraska. And resolved, encourages all citizens to recognize and celebrate the positive impact that apprenticeship programs have on the lives of Nebraskans, the workforce, and the future education of our great state. Thank you.
Kristen, do you have the motion to adopt it?
Declaring April 30th, 2025 Apprenticeship Day.
Second. Thank you, Liz. It is moved and seconded to adopt the resolution declaring April 30th, 2025 Apprenticeship Day. Is there any discussion on the motion? Well, I have a question for you, Mr. Carr. So last fall, I was honored to accompany the commissioner to the expansion of the apprenticeship program in the announcement for that. And so my question is, can we at some point this year have some sort of presentation or more information for board members going forward?
You bet. We would love to bring you that information on the expansion and the opportunity for even future building on this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. All right, thank you, I appreciate that. So the motion is to adopt the resolution declaring April 30th, 2025 Apprenticeship Day. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the resolution is adopted, and I'll present this to you and your staff. The next item of business is the Commissioner's report. Commissioner Maher, please provide your report.
Thank you. First of all, I would tell you that one item has been identified to be removed from the consent agenda. That item is 6.4.B. If board members wish to remove any additional items from the consent agenda, please fill out the form at this time. Any items removed from the consent agenda will be taken up under additional business. Well, good morning, members of the board, our guests in the audience, and any of those listening at home. What an incredibly busy time we've had the last few weeks, much of it centered on federal education policy change. In the last 2 weeks, I've had opportunities to go to Washington, D.C. 2 different times. My team and I have had the opportunity to visit with many senior U.S. Department of Education leaders, including Secretary McMahon. Last week, I was able to connect with staff from Senators Fisher and Ricketts' offices and Congressman Flood and Bacon. Here we were able to share our hope to continue strong relationships with the United States Department of Education and a willingness to innovate and take on greater autonomy and responsibility and share a vision for what education can look like in Nebraska. This week has also been specifically focused on a U.S. Education Department change regarding liquidation of our ESSER funds, which has impacted our work. In fact, it's impacted almost all of our work in the office this particular week. For a little bit of context, in the summer of 2024, the United States Department of Education shared communications on the ability of a state education agency, that's us, we're an SEA, to apply for late liquidation. When approved, such requests would allow SEAs to access the federal pandemic relief funding beyond the original date for liquidation. The NDE requested late liquidation projects for literacy, family and community engagement, after-school and summer enrichment, infrastructure and technology, homeless children and youth, and one specifically for the Omaha Public Schools. We received notification a week ago, last Friday, at the end of the day, on March 28th, that the late liquidation was going to be changing, and that Monday morning we began seeking clarification to notify our contractors that they must stop work, and we were trying to identify the impact that new liquidation timeframe, what that meant for the Department of Education in Nebraska. So some people have asked me in this last week, why didn't we or why couldn't we have spent the money in the earlier liquidation period? And quite frankly, we could have, but the Department of Education looked intensively at all unused funds and all data on the continued impacts of COVID-19 and on state assessment results, and actually began to reprioritize and refocus our work. We kicked off our extraordinary work on literacy through this project, and we were able to spend intentionally rather than what we had thought at the time would be quickly or frivolously. I believe our work across the ESSER-funded projects have had an impact already, and will continue to do so to the extent that we can at this point. So I think the late liquidation was the prudent route for us to go in the state of Nebraska. I want to dig into a little bit here this morning, the impact a little further of what the liquidation of completion by March 28th, 1 week ago, what that means for us in the state. And what does it mean for us going forward? First, the Department of Education requested $20.2 million in flexibility for accessing these funds beyond the end date through this late liquidation process. Of that request, only about $9 million remains. Putting this in perspective, that's less than 1.6% of all of our ARP funds or all of our ESSER funds appropriated to the state of Nebraska. So when you look at it from a percentage standpoint, it doesn't look so bad. However, when we look at that 1.6% and what does that mean to folks who are working on our behalf or on behalf of kids in the state, and that change has impacted 21 contractors, several of those contractors with multiple scopes of work. So the reversal by the United States Education Department impacted our literacy priority, where we're using ESSER funding to support the UNL Words Project, the UNO Literacy Workshop, and the UNK RISE Early Literacy Project, the DMG for School Improvement and Engagement, and a book distribution for the Nebraska Growing Readers Project. As I've always said when it comes to the ESSER funding or any funding, quite frankly, it's not so much about the money as it is about the work. And while this is a step back, we'll continue to make this a priority. And I would tell you, as you've heard from me in the past, our specific goals as they relate to literacy have not changed. The information that we got from USDOE last week does not change our goal on student outcomes in the state of Nebraska. So what's next? Yesterday, several folks from the Department of Education joined a call with the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education shared ways we could pursue reconsideration of our requests for late liquidation, and we will be doing so after a consultation with you here this morning. Also, with me reaching out to the governor and talking about some involvement there, and certainly also engaging again with our congressional delegation to figure out what are our next steps and what's best for Nebraska. We'll continue to deepen our relationships with our congressional members and with their staff, and we'll strive to build collaborative relationships with the U.S. Department of Education and the staff members that we have access to there. As I've said before, we at the agency are well poised to handle change at the federal level. I still believe that today, and we demonstrated our ability by showing some adaptability this last week. Across any change at the state or the federal level, our mission doesn't change. We'll continue to do the important work, the hard work for our students, for our staff, for our clients, and for our communities every day. So from that perspective, nothing's changed. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. You did bring up something in your report that I don't know if we have an agenda item. Do you just want consensus from the board to pursue it, or?
Really good question, and I should have been clearer on that. Really what I wanted you to do is I wanted you to know that we'll still be doing work in this particular area. So I will still be working and reaching out to the governor's office. I will still be reaching out to our congressional delegation, and I will continue to reach out to the US DOE to see what options do we have in front of us. So no action on your part. Good question.
Great. Any questions or discussion on the Commissioner's report? Deb?
I just want to clarify what I think I heard. 9 million is what's left as of the day we got the notice. 21 contractors working across hundreds of schools, or just school districts across the state, or, is there a geographic region that impacts? No.
No, a really good question. So I would tell you my original thought in your question is what's the geographic impact of the work that we're doing right now? I would tell you that we're doing work in the Omaha Public Schools, and we're doing literacy work in the Scottsbluff Public Schools. So the reach is from border to border.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, any others? Okay, well, thank you for your work.
You're welcome.
On behalf of the department and your staff that's helping you. So, the next item, NDE staff member, David Jesperson. Please make your way to the front of the room for a brief introduction of Lindsay Wilson, our 2025 Nebraska Teacher of the Year. Lindsay is a middle school teacher from Bennington Middle School in Bennington, Nebraska.
Good morning, David Jesperson, Office of Public Information and Communications. I realized that was a great introduction. That's all Lindsay really needs. She's been extremely busy the last couple of months, and she's here to fill us in on everything she's doing. I did want to point out one really neat thing that she brought up, and she brought to the program. As she visits places and gets invitations to different schools and things, she asked me, hey, can I visit other schools in that same day if they want me there? And I'm like, yes, please. And so she's been reaching out to other schools and proactively visiting with teachers and spreading the word of the program. And today I'm handing her a new brochure we created that basically spells out the ins and outs of the Teacher of the Year program. She's taking these programs with her, so the school she's visiting now, she's going to leave some behind to help drum up even more support and even more interest in the program. So with that, I'll introduce Lindsay Wilson.
And as Lindsay makes her way, David, I have a question for you. The nominations for Teacher of the Year is still open and available on the NDE website?
Absolutely. So it's on the homepage, easy to find there. The nominations are extremely simple. You just say the teacher you want nominated, a little bit about why, and if you have the school and the principal's information, that's great. And then we take it from there and notify the teachers. So those are open. They'll be open for quite a while. Application process is also open, so teachers that want to apply can do so on the website as well.
All right.
Thank you for that question.
Yep. All right.
Hello. How are you guys? It's like teacher life right here. Got to get all set up first. Hopefully it'll just switch over. Okay. I didn't know if I needed to do any more.
I know our tech team is getting it switched over for you.
Well, sometimes I have to do things on my end, so. Just want me to-
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead and start.
All right.
I mean, are you good starting without the
Yeah,
screen?
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get it. Okay, good morning. So it is super great to be back here today. A few months ago, I sat here in this very seat and told you about my vision for being Nebraska Teacher of the Year 2025. It is this vision that's filled with curiosity, connection, and a commitment to shaking things up in education for the better. So this year has been absolutely life-changing. Since January, I've been on this incredible, whirlwind adventure. So I'm excited to share with you some of the things that I've been doing. And hopefully we'll be able to see because I have tons of pictures. So I'm going to use his computer instead. So my message this entire time has been grounded in curiosity, critical thinking, and creating a classroom where teachers and students feel valued and empowered to achieve greatness. This year, more than ever, I've realized the power of surrounding myself with the right people, those who uplift, inspire, and challenge me to dream even bigger. You might remember me mentioning educational expanders, those individuals who help us realize our potential and push us beyond our limits and encourage us to be the best versions of ourselves and pursue those goals. So over the last few months, I've made a ton of new connections with other people and ignited my passion further for the work that I do. And I haven't felt this inspired to take on new initiatives in a very long time. Perfect, I'll just keep going. All right, there's some great pictures in here though, I promise. All right, this experience has only strengthened my determination to make a difference in what I'm doing for students and for teachers. The ideas literally just keep coming. I am beyond inspired right now. So with that, all of these ideas just don't feel so out of reach with the support that I have. I'm surrounded around people who embrace this quirky, energetic middle school teacher that believes that when we all come together, we can achieve a whole lot more. What I've realized more than anything is behind every Teacher of the Year is a community of educators and families and teachers that are there to support. And in my case, I have an absolutely supportive husband as well who listens to my endless ramblings about all the incredible people I'm meeting and the experiences that I'm witnessing. So I stand on the shoulders of a ton of people who hopefully you'll be able to see here in a second. One of them being my state coordinator, David Jesperson, who literally does it all and answers all my questions and tells me just to go for it. My administration and my mentor, who remind me that even if not everyone is ready for my crazy ideas, that the students are and that they deserve them. So I'm gonna skip forward a little bit here. Okay, so here's my kids, they're so great. Okay, moving on, here's my people, okay? Also, my sister-in-law, she's in the bottom right-hand corner there. She is a fellow educator for Omaha Public Schools, and she continues to be my greatest sounding board and unwavering support. My team over on the left, they encourage me every day to stay true to myself, and my teaching partner in the top right, who never says, that won't work, but instead gives me a high five and he says, let's do this, right? The people in the middle, those are some of my new state teacher colleagues. Those are the science teachers. And they are some of the most passionate, energetic people I've ever had the opportunity to meet. And of course, my incredible middle schoolers who remind me every day that real growth happens when we are challenged, supported, and encouraged to be bold, resilient, and unapologetically ourselves. I stated earlier this year that I have 3 goals. The first being to advocate for inquiry-based learning, because I want to inspire teachers to embrace hands-on inquiry-based approaches for engagement and real-world application. The second, promoting equity and access, because I truly believe that every student deserves access to high-quality and engaging education, regardless of their resources. And third, to celebrate teachers and elevate our profession. Teachers are the heart of education, and I want to spotlight their stories and their successes. So over the past few months, I've kind of hit the ground running. So you might be wondering, what has she been doing? For me, I have delivered 12 presentations. I've sat on 2 panel discussions. I've traveled to California for the National Teacher of the Year program. I was a keynote for Educators Rising, who are inspiring the next generation of educators. I have volunteered for Read Across America and continued to expand science programming and community collaborations in my district. Also, I've led a science club at a local elementary school, organized 2 major school and district-wide events, the Curious Creators Expo and a science research symposium, continued to expand our science research team, and I am the most recent recipient of the Michelle Ricard Science Teacher Sponsor Award. So I want to tell you about some of my initiatives that I'm most proud of, because I mentioned them as something I wanted to do in January, the first being the Curious Creators Expo. This initiative supports my first 2 goals. As we see that science fair across the state has not increased, it's not because of lack of interest, but more so lack of space in our day. And I want to create new opportunities for students to showcase their work. So in collaboration with our school's art teacher, we launched the first ever Curious Creators Expo, a community event where all 2nd through 5th graders across our district could showcase their science and art projects, engaging in interactive activities with their families. 2 highlights from that was watching my own middle schoolers lead each of these activities, including my daughter on the right middle. But one of my proudest moments and highlights from that day was a 2nd grader who was proudly presenting her project on open and closed circuits with a makey-makey, where you take various objects. She took bananas and made a piano that you could actually play. And she stood there so proudly and presented to students and parents about her project. And at one point I said to her, "Hey, do you want to go and do some of the activities?" And she said, "I can't." I said, "Oh, why not?" She goes, "Because everybody wants to hear about my project." And that was proof in that moment that students need that space to shine, and they will rise to the occasion. Another program that I initiated was our research symposium. This was another incredible opportunity for all students in the 7th grade at Bennington Middle School to showcase their research. After studying moon jelly populations and their drastic changes, students took the lead in developing their own research questions and presenting their findings to classmates, the entire grade level, and community members. A former student, now a professional in the field, returned to share her expertise on science research and how it impacted her as a middle schooler. With the help of our PTO, we were able to make it happen. And this symposium reinforced that students, when given meaningful challenges and platforms to share their discoveries, will rise to the occasion, demonstrating their brilliance that happens in an environment where there's curiosity and support. Both of these events align with my goals of advocating for inquiry-based learning and promoting equity and access, ensuring that all students have the opportunity to engage in meaningful hands-on learning experiences and showcase that brilliance. Alongside my work with students, I am dedicated to highlighting and celebrating incredible educators across our state that make this learning possible. So far, since February, I have had the honor of recognizing 14 teachers from 7 different schools across 5 different districts. These are only a few of the phenomenal teachers that I have had the privilege to connect with, educators who inspire, innovate, and uplift students and teachers every day. These are the educators elevating our profession, and they showcase what makes the heart of teachers in Nebraska so great. Our profession is stronger because of these guys right here. And the momentum keeps going. I'm not done. Before the end of the school year, I will be a part of a family engagement podcast, 7 more presentations, 2 keynotes, meeting with UNL's aspiring educators, continuing to celebrate Nebraska teachers, continuing to expand science programming, not only in my own district, but across the state, mentoring teachers and building that network of support, and helping myself to write more grants for new initiatives as well as other educators. I will keep choosing to disrupt and inspire, as you remember those were my words for the year, and continuing to share one big message, to teach like a rebel. That does not mean breaking rules, but breaking barriers, the ones that limit our students, teachers, and even ourselves. So we've all heard those voices in education. That's just not how we do things. Our students aren't ready for that challenge, and we don't have the resources to make that happen. And you know what? I say it's time we prove them wrong. Teaching like a rebel means that we refuse to let outdated practices hold our students back. It means that we fight for the hands-on, engaging learning that sparks curiosity. It means that we find ways, big or small, to make sure that every student in our classroom has meaningful access or meaningful, high-quality education. But most importantly, it means advocating for teachers. Because when educators feel supported, inspired, and valued, their passion ignites and their impact grows exponentially. That's why I will continue to elevate the profession, expand STEM opportunities, and create learning spaces where all students and teachers can thrive. And it starts with one simple question: what if? For me, I asked the question 2 years ago: what if we implemented more inquiry into our science curriculum? What if we built a science research team? What if we hosted elementary students to spark their passion for STEM? What if we made this a collaborative initiative? And what if every student was allowed to share their research and learn from a professional in the field? Each what if has inspired me to ask more questions, as well as others to ask their own. And that is how we create that real and lasting change. I've already seen the ripple effect of this. With one district showcase has now inspired 2 other teachers in my district to launch their own initiatives. A parent approached me and asked about an elementary science fair, in which I said, obviously. 3 teachers are now planning 3 state teachers are now planning their own versions of these events as well, and have now been inspired to celebrate their own teachers in their state. And here's the best part: it's just the beginning. Education should be a place where students wonder, create, and explore. A place where teachers feel empowered to take risks, try new things, and disrupt the status quo for the better. And that's exactly the kind of learning environment that I will continue to work toward, not just in my classroom, but across Nebraska. So we have to keep going. Together, we have to keep innovating, keep celebrating, and most importantly, keep inspiring. So I thank you all for your unwavering support of teachers, students, and the future of education in Nebraska. It truly does take a community, and I'm very proud to be a part of this one. So, as I always say, stay curious, inspire, and be inspired by those around you. Thank you.
Board members, any comments or questions for Lindsay?
Yeah, if I could. Thank you for being here and sharing all that you're doing. It makes me a little emotional hearing about all the work that you're doing. It's so inspiring and exciting, and it makes me really miss being a teacher. So I just really appreciate all that you've done and all that you continue to do for your students and for the state. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for being our ambassador. We appreciate it and taking us on your journey with you. So
absolutely.
We'll see you again in a few months.
Yes.
Okay. With great relief, we all sigh. There is no president's report this month. We will now move to the public comment period. This period may be available to any person who wishes to address the board on any matter appearing on the agenda. Up to 90 minutes will be allowed for public comment period. A majority of members present and voting may take action to extend the total amount of time allowed for public comment period. A majority of members present and voting may also take action to allow or terminate public comment at any time during a meeting. If you are not signed in and wish to speak, please sign in at this time. Those wishing to speak must sign in at the table outside the meeting room. Each individual speaking to the board will be required to complete a sign-in card for identification of oneself. Individuals are required to include on the sign-in card their name, address, and name of any organization represented. Individuals may be prohibited to speak in public comment if the sign-in card does not include the required information. Persons speaking to the board during public comment should state their name, city, and state at the beginning of their allotted time, and may submit printed materials for the board, but may not use any other form of media. Anyone refusing to be identified will be prohibited from speaking. Each person may address the board for up to 5 minutes. A majority of board members present and voting may take action to reduce or extend the amount of time allotted to individual speakers. If at any time persons appearing before the board exceed the time limitations set forth in this policy or on the agenda, or become abusive or threatening in language or behavior, it shall be the responsibility of the president to refuse permission to continue to address the board. How many public comment? 4. We have 4 public comment cards. Those wishing to, who have submitted cards, please move to the front of the room, and Vice President Neary will announce the names of the speakers. Please do remember to please give us your name and town when you start your public comment.
Okay, good morning. We'll start with Julia Keton. I hope I said that correctly. And then she'll be followed by Dr. Griffin, Leo Lewis II, and then Mary Beth Hevron. I hope I said that correctly. So if you want to come forward, Julia.
I've heard Julia Carton before, so don't you worry about that. Good morning, board members. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Julia Catton, and I am from Bellevue, Nebraska. And I am a senior at Nebraska Wesleyan University studying language arts education and theater. And I'm currently student teaching at Burke High School in Omaha. Go Bulldogs! I am here to speak in support of shifting theater and speech education from a supplemental endorsement to a subject endorsement under Rule 24. I believe this is a necessary step to ensure that students all across Nebraska receive an excellent theater and speech education led by highly qualified and passionate educators. Well-structured theater and speech programs don't just create actors and theater technicians and public speakers, but they create leaders, and they create problem solvers, they create effective communicators and collaborators. These programs encourage the growth of creative, confident, culturally competent, and empathetic individuals. Theater and speech equips students with the tools to be successful not only in their classes, but in any career that they pursue. Ever since I was 14, I knew that I wanted to be a public school theater educator. Theater has always been a creative outlet for me and a safe space, and I knew that my calling was to make a positive difference in young people's lives through theater education. In my first year of college, I met with my education advisor to map out my course plan for the next semester, and he had asked me about my plans for declaring my major. And with exuberance and a wide smile, I said that I wanted to major in theater arts education. And then his next 3 words were like daggers to my soul. That's not possible. I was then forced to change my entire course plan completely. And so I decided to major in language arts education and have a supplemental endorsement in theater. And on top of that, I also pursued a theater major so that I could have more training and knowledge in that content area. While I deeply respect and appreciate English language arts as a subject, my passion has always been with theater. And under the current system, I had no choice but to divide my focus. And not only was I spread incredibly thin during my time in college, but I was also taking many classes about a subject that I didn't have too much interest in. Many theater educators experience this dilemma. It's not just me. They either take on an extra subject area that's unrelated to theater, or they settle for a supplemental endorsement that barely covers the large scope of what theater has to offer. If theater and speech become a subject endorsement, future educators will be equipped to teach various aspects of theater, such as performance techniques, stagecraft, directing, theatrical design, theater history, among other things, as well as building and maintaining a strong and sustainable program. At Burke High School, where I student teach, I teach a section of Drama 2 and a section of Honors Drama 4, and I've also helped out with our spring musical Chicago Teen Edition, which opens today, get your tickets, as well as our unified musical Trolls, which premieres in May. I have seen firsthand the tremendous impact theater has on all my students. Theater has helped my students learn to collaborate effectively with other people. Theater has helped my students build confidence and advocate for themselves. And theater has helped my students find a sense of belonging. And theater has quite frankly saved some of my students' lives who come from rough home situations where they have a place where they know 100% that they are supported, where they are loved, and where they are safe. And whether or not students choose to pursue theater professionally, they will always leave it with a stronger work ethic, stronger communication skills, resiliency, emotional intelligence, and a place to call home. Students in theater and speech programs deserve highly qualified teachers, and they learn essential life skills just like they do in other core classes in theater and speech. And that's why I support theater and speech becoming a subject endorsement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Dr. LaDonna Griffin.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Dr. LaDonna Griffin, Omaha, Nebraska. I come to you today starting out simply because I care. Being an educator of 30 years in the public schools, working with students who still today are not thriving in their current situations. Again, I care. I pause for a moment because I just like yesterday, I can remember as a first grade teacher, my first year teaching, understanding right away as they came into the classroom that I not only have to be the teacher, I also have to take into consideration their emotional as well as their physical well-being. With that came the title of caretaker. As I worked with every single student, I had to find out what were the missing holes. And whatever they were, yeah, teachers' shoulders are this broad. I had to figure out what those holes were and then provide them. I specifically speak on reading because I know that that is the topic at hand today for the State Board of Education and our state of Nebraska. I see it as we having a big opportunity to make a big difference in the lives of so many children. Using phonics at that time as a first grade teacher, I really pushed hard to give them tools so that when I'm not present, they can take those tools and pick them up and become critical thinkers and advocates in their spaces that they're in as well. I'm a resident of Omaha, Nebraska my whole life, North Omaha community, 6th generation, really understanding those 30 years when I was in the public schools that it wasn't that parents didn't care. Parents cared so deeply, they sent them to us every day trusting that we were going to provide what was needed for their children. And we did just that. As my journey in education continued, I also took note of those things that weren't working and made every effort in any position that I was in, whether it was classroom teacher or administrator of a building, to meet the needs that were in front of me. The basic needs of being able to read is a civil right. It is the precursor to the success in life of everything else. Upon my transition out of the public schools in 2019, I met a pretty amazing, brilliant young man by the name of Leo Lewis II, who is a co-author of a book with me. We also, we came together and said, you know what? We have something to offer to both parents and teachers. So we put our brains together, put our heads together for 5 years, sat down and said, let's put this in a format that everybody can understand and comprehend. And so I come before you today as we embrace this need for improvement in reading. We know any one of us that sits down with anybody and starts to talk reading with any child, that is not just about the content. It's also about the emotional well-being and the relationship that's genuinely built, and owning the responsibility that it's my job to make sure this being in front of me reads. And so I won't take any more of your time, just want to share that we did write a book. This book really would be very helpful for classroom teachers as well as parents. Just took parents through a 10-week course, came back weekly and committed every single parent and said, I am going to be the change maker in my child's life. Again, parents really do care. And so as they came back after 10 weeks of participating in this course, they want more. They're like, how do I make sure that my child has a quality education and is set up for success? So I came before you just saying there are answers within our community, and working together is how we continue to push along our families and change the state of Nebraska. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Griffin. Leo Lewis II, please.
All right, thank you all. Good day. And just a little bit about me. I am Leo Lewis II. What I primarily focus on in Omaha, Nebraska is community organizing. It wasn't until I experienced a situation with my nephew, who was a first grader, who was suspended from school twice within 2 months, that I realized that we had a problem with student discipline in the education system, especially our public education system. Now, I am a great proponent and supporter of public, private, and those who benefit from Rule 13 homeschoolers in education. However, I realized there was a clear disparity for African American students who attended public schools in Omaha. So I began to organize in 2018 and 2019 to discover how could we get to the bottom of this particular issue. And when I started looking at the data, I realized that not only nationwide is this an issue, but it's a clear issue here in the state of Nebraska, where African American children continue to account for more than 50% of the disciplinary actions that happen in the school systems, but they only make up approximately 24 to 25% of the student body population. That's unacceptable to me, especially in the community that I serve, because those juveniles who are no longer in school because of suspensions become the juveniles that become incarcerated, who become the adults that become incarcerated and cost all of us taxpayers a lot of money. And so I realized that education is a very big part of stopping that school to prison pipeline. So how can we do that? Well, we can't blame the teachers. We can't blame the parents. We can't blame the kids. What should we do? We should look at how we actually work together. And when I started to scour the community to find people who were passionate about this issue, I found two great educators, Dr. LaDonna Griffin and Principal J.B. at Franklin Elementary, who were two educators passionate about restorative justice and making sure that children, when they made a mistake, had an opportunity to come back and fix that mistake and continue on with their education. That inspired me. And so I reached out to Dr. Griffin and said, can we continue to meet? Can we talk more? And as we continued to talk in 2020 in February, right before the pandemic, we said, you know what? It would be great if we sat down and created a tool that parents, educators, and others could use to better collaborate and better understand each other. With my community organizing experience and your education experience, I think we have something here. And so we spent hours after hour after hour drafting up this content that eventually became a great text and a book that we recently had published here this year in 2025. So after 500 hours of dedicated work, meeting day in and day out, week after week, trying to go through all of the years of experience that we have, my 15 years of organizing, her 30 years plus in the education system, we distilled that information into this great text, The Grown Folks and the Magic Wand. So we're here to let you all know, because you have so much to do. You make such big decisions, that on the ground in Omaha, in North Omaha, in a concentrated area, there are two dedicated people who are meeting with parents, having conversations, and really building that grassroots group of parents who take accountability, which we all want to see, by learning from us and our experience. And we're taking their experience and putting it together so that there's better relationships between educators, child care providers, bus drivers, and other caretakers of children. And we just wanted you all to know, while you continue to do your work, that we're doing our work as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And we have Mary Beth, I'm going to say this wrong. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Mary Beth Heverin. I come to you first time. I've lived in Nebraska now on and off throughout my whole life, but for the last 10 years. I'm coming to you today, and I live in the Omaha area for your information. I come to you on 3 separate issues today, and they're all on agenda items. And the first is agenda item 7.2G, and that is the audit. I'm part of the tax-paying public in Omaha, and I also have an interest in policy, which I've done for a number of years, and mostly concerned with, as Dr. Maher said, the devolution of the federal Department of Education as it moves to the state level, and also the property angst of taxpayers in Nebraska. And the concern highlighted $234,162,148 in adjustments due to errors. These are errors made by the Department of Education. Quick highlight of the report. Many of the current year accruals were inaccurate and not prepared in accordance with governmental accounting standards. Additionally, the department lacked procedures to ensure a secondary review of the accruals to verify their completeness and accuracy prior to submission to state accounting or when the entries were recorded in the state's accounting system. And one other note, a similar issue was reported in the prior year. And so that is concerning to me, as it should be to most people that live in our state, especially with all the changes happening. We are going to get more and more money from the federal level. And the question is, if we can't manage the money we have now, what will happen then? The second issue is item 7.3, section F, and that's the draft behavioral model policy. And that concerns behavioral intervention and classroom management. The question I have, and I hope it's discussed and answered later in the meeting, is the reintegration plan. And that was the student returns to the classroom with appropriate support, which may include a reintegration checklist, a designated buddy, or frequent check-ins with a trusted adult. My question to you is that buddy a child or is that buddy an adult? Because as you know, the schools function in loco parentis, which means school personnel have a duty to protect the student. And they also have the duty to protect from foreseeable harm. So my concern is if that buddy is a student set drafted into that position to be a buddy to someone with an emotional concern that is reintegrated back into the classroom, that's problematic. And I also think not specifying adult or child in the term buddy leaves it open to gaps of understanding of student, staff, personnel. And lastly, I watched a couple of your meetings online on YouTube. And my concern is did you know that they have ads? I think that's something that you need to be concerned with. They do have the ability on YouTube to go ad-free. Omaha Public Schools currently does it ad-free. And some of the ads you may be concerned with having been shown during your live public meetings. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your work. I once too served in a local governance position on a local school board, and I know how hard you all work as far as getting ready to prepare and ask questions at the meeting. So I look forward to your comments later throughout. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our public testifiers. We appreciate you coming, and the rest of our audience, thank you for coming and being here. Civic engagement is important. Item 5.2 is submitted written public comments are attached in the electronic meeting agenda for the board and the public to review. I am going to have a recess at this time for board members to stretch their legs, and so we will reconvene at 10:15.
And that amendment I asked you to create, I'm not going to use it, to the NACD thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You asked me to create.
Oh, never mind. It doesn't matter because I don't need it.
Okay. All right, the meeting will resume.
Okay.
Agenda item 6, consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda. Without 6.4.b.
Second?
It is moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda without item 6.4.b. Per board policy, there is no discussion on the motion to adopt the consent agenda. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Schoenhoff?
Yes.
Neary?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Penner?
Yes.
Tegmeyer?
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the consent agenda is adopted. The next item of business are the reports from the standing committee. I will report on behalf of the executive committee meeting. The executive committee reports on its April 3rd, 2025 meeting. Members present were Chair Elizabeth Tegmeyer, Vice Chair Deborah Neary, Sherry Jones, and Liz Renner. The committee had one discussion item. The committee reviewed proposed legislation and the status of education-related bills. The committee continues to meet weekly through the legislative session to advise the commissioner on legislative matters. The committee reviewed information items. The committee received an update on the status of the strategic planning process, including concluded work, data gathered, and next steps. Board members will receive more information about the scheduled focus groups. The committee received information on the commissioner's appraisal process and the associated timeline. Board members will receive information this month on completing the appraisal. This concludes the executive committee report. Elizabeth Tegmeyer, Chair. Are there any questions on the executive committee report? Agenda item 7.1.a. Board members, are there any questions or discussion on this item? And just a reminder, the running document can be found in Spark on legislation. Agenda item 7.2. Chair Kristen Christensen will report on behalf of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
The Budget and Finance Committee reports that at its Thursday, April 3rd meeting, members present were Kristen Christensen, Maggie Douglas, Lisa Schoenhoff, and Kirk Penner. The committee reviewed 6 action items. The first item reviewed was the School Emergency Mapping Grant. The committee then reviewed an item to approve the use of trust funds to contract for repair and maintenance expenses at the Nebraska Center for the Education of Children who are blind or visually impaired. Next, the committee reviewed proposed contracts to carry out the Nebraska statewide educational programs and support services for children who are deaf or hard of hearing, and a contract to provide data analysis and federal reporting for IDEA birth through age 5 programs. The last 2 action items reviewed by the committee included an amendment to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln WORDS project to change the funding source from ESSER to IDEA Part B funds, and a review of the annual comprehensive financial report audit. The committee recommended approval of all action items. The committee reviewed 2 discussion items and engaged with NDE staff on potential uses of the Nebraska Improvement Grant funds around chronic absenteeism and school improvement work. Last, the committee reviewed 9 information items, including the following: PEAK subgrants, a contract for the menstrual product pilot program, a contract for the educator licensure system, new and expansion of early childhood grants, upcoming revision action grants, the annual technology expenditure request for renewal of software licenses and replacement equipment, and the single audit report. Additionally, the committee was provided an update on the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant and a related contract for an external evaluator. This concludes the Budget and Finance Committee report. Kristen Christensen, Chair.
Are there any questions on the Budget and Finance Committee report? Okay, I know you guys had a heavy agenda, so thank you for your work yesterday on that. We appreciate that. Are there any questions on the reports in item 7.2.a? Okay. Is there a motion on 7.2.b?
Yes, I move to approve the funding recommendations for the school emergency response mapping grant.
It is moved and seconded to approve the funding recommendations for the school emergency response mapping grant. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay. The motion is to approve the funding recommendations for the school emergency response mapping grant. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Christensen,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Schoenhoff, Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve the funding recommendations for the school emergency response mapping grant is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.c?
Yes, I move to authorize the commissioner to contract for repair and maintenance expenses at the NCEC BVI.
Is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to contract for repair and maintenance expenses at the NCEC BVI. Is there any discussion on this motion? The motion is to authorize the commissioner to contract for repair and maintenance expenses at the NCEC BVI. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Jones,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to contract for repair and maintenance expenses at the NCEC BVI is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.d?
Yes, I move to authorize the commissioner to contract and carry out grant activity for the Nebraska statewide educational programs and support services for children who are deaf or hard of hearing.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to contract and carry out grant activity for the Nebraska statewide educational programs and support services for children who are deaf or hard of hearing. Is there any discussion on the motion? The motion is to authorize the commissioner to contract and carry out grant activity for the Nebraska statewide educational programs and support services for children who are deaf or hard of hearing. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to contract and carry out grant activity for the Nebraska statewide educational programs and support services for children who are deaf or hard of hearing is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.e?
I move to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Child Program and Family Outcomes Measurement System.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Child Program and Family Outcomes Measurement System. Is there any discussion on this motion? The motion is to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Child Program and Family Outcomes Measurement System. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Child Program and Family Outcomes Measurement System is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.f?
Yes. I move to authorize the commissioner to fund the UNL Words project with IDEA funds.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the Commissioner to fund the UNL Words Project with IDEA funds. Is there any discussion on the motion? The motion is to authorize the Commissioner to fund the UNL Words Project with IDEA funds. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Jones,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the Commissioner to fund the UNL Words Project with IDEA funds is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.g?
Yes. I move to accept the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report audits.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to accept the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report audit. Is there any discussion on the motion? Kirk?
Can we have Bryce come up and address some of the questions that discussed?
Okay. Bryce Wilson, could you come? And would remind board members to have questions for the staff member.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're not just having him come up to do a presentation.
No. Can you address the earlier statement about the $234 million missing?
Mismarked.
Sure. Bryce Wilson, Finance Officer, Department of Education. The first finding, the $228 million that was referenced on the multiple financial statement adjustments finding is related to how we mark accruals for aid payments. There's a window in July of every year we have to submit to the Department of Administrative Services the accrual, what we know is going to be accrued for payments that occur before the fiscal year ends. So work that's done or payments that are due because of work done prior to June 30th of every year. We submit that to the Department of Administrative Services. They then record that as an accrued expenditure. From the point of July 1st through September 30th, then they mark those off and we record them as a current year expenditure because they're already in their report. For the 15 years that I've been here, we have always recorded every aid payment that occurs after September 30th as a prior year adjustment. We were notified this year in the audit that we shouldn't have been doing that, that they should have been marked as a prior year adjustment. Our understanding was those were being recorded in that accrual already and shouldn't have been. Essentially what happens is they're being recorded twice in the prior year because of how the Department of Administrative Services was handling those. So 15 years we've been doing it that way. The auditors told us that wasn't the right way to do it this year. It's already been adjusted in our system. Will be corrected. It won't be an issue anymore. So it's just a matter of which year those aid payments. It looks like it is a big dollar amount because it's aid payments. So it's significant when we talk about federal grants that are going through that were due and ESSER funds and stuff like that. And it's not uncommon for grant reimbursement requests to come in significantly after the time when they actually accrue those because they'll do it all at once type of thing. So it's a big dollar amount, but it was just a marking which year incorrectly based on our understanding how Department of Administrative Services wanted us to mark those.
Any other questions?
No, 6 years on the board and quite a few years in Finance Committee. It's my recollection, and I hope you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but that we've had one of the cleanest audits in Nebraska state government. Every, is it biennial or is it annual? But I mean, the purpose of the audit is they're always going to find something, and that's just how it's supposed to work because it's a way of just helping us fine tune and tweak. But I think we've had a pretty stellar history. Am I correct in that?
I feel like we've had a good history. I think 2 years ago we were here, and between the two, we get audited every year, basically nonstop almost. But 2 years ago I was here, and between the two audits we had one finding, and I think at that time I said, that's great, but with the ESSER funds coming through, I don't think it'll probably be quite as clean these next couple of years with just the additional volume. And it did catch up with us, just trying to keep up with everything. But I feel confident in the team that we have working, and what this has proven as well as there's some recording issues that we'll clean up. I'm confident we've already got all of them, but one thing addressed and fixes in place, the one we're working to address at this moment. So I've worked with the teams to make sure that we have everything fixed already. But there's no misappropriation of dollars, there's no mispayments, anything like that that we would really be concerned with. We don't want any findings, that's the goal, but there's some things we'll clean up, we'll address, and they won't be an issue going forward.
Okay, Bryce, thanks for coming up and clearing that up. Sometimes reading the reports is a little tricky, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, any further questions or discussion? I didn't think so. So the motion is to accept the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report Audit. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to accept the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report Audit is adopted. Agenda item 7.2.h. Board members, are there any questions or discussion on this item? Okay. Agenda item 7.3, Chair Lisa Schoenhoff will report on behalf of the Planning and Evaluation Committee meeting.
Thank you. Our meeting was yesterday. The Planning and Evaluation Committee reports on the committee meeting on April 3rd, 2025. The members present were Lisa Schoenhoff, Sherry Jones, Deborah Neary, and Kristen Christensen. The committee discussed 5 action items related to plans of corrections for schools: the approval of non-public and interim program schools, a pilot process for cooperating teachers of world languages, and a model behavior intervention policy for schools. The committee recommends board approval on these items. The committee also discussed an action item related to the NCTE organizational policies. The committee does not have a recommendation at this time. The committee reviewed discussion items with NDE staff, providing summaries and answering questions related to the approval of Rule 11 teacher waiver requests, accreditation of public and non-public Rule 10 school systems and ESU systems, priority school designation process, and Asante Elementary School priority school status. The committee also reviewed informational items and related to the content standards review process, conditional approval of new non-public school systems, approval of new interim program schools, and approval of educator preparation programs. NDE staff will bring these items to a future meeting for discussion and subsequent approval. This concludes the Planning and Evaluation Report. Lisa Schoenhoff, Chair.
Are there any questions on the Planning and Evaluation Committee report? Once again, I want to thank this committee. You had a heavy agenda. You got through a lot, and some of you had both budget and finance and planning and evaluation. So thanks for being a team player that way. Is there a motion on item 7.3.a?
Oh, yes. I move to approve the revised NCTE organizational policies to take effect July 1st, 2025.
It is moved and seconded to approve the revised NCTE organizational policies to take effect July 1st, 2025. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I don't know if my light is on. Yes, Madam Chair. For those of you joining us today by video, I'd like to state that according to Board Operating Policy 1.09, quote, every 2 years a board shall review the role, functions, and responsibilities of task forces and advisory committees or councils established by the board, end of quote. The Nebraska Council on Teacher Education is one such entity. NCTE was last reviewed 4 years ago in 2021, so it's due for a review. Last September, as chair of the Planning and Evaluation Committee, I began the process of review. The organizational policies of the Nebraska Council on Teacher Education proposal is now before the board as an action item. Board members, on the extended document, you were able to see changes redlined and highlighted in yellow. With an exception of a minor change within the first paragraph of the document, the proposed changes are to the makeup of the teacher membership. The number of representatives would remain the same, 16. The proposed allocation of teacher members is 11 representatives from the Nebraska State Education Association and 5 non-NSEA members. Based on the information I obtained, I believe this allocation is reasonable and balanced. Currently, there is no assurance that there will be any teachers on the NCTE membership from private or parochial schools, nor from anyone not belonging to the teachers' union. Thus, we are missing a valuable perspective, I believe. From Mr. Dirkson's recollection, I spoke with him about this and asked him, in the past 7 years in his position with NDE and involvement with NCTE, there has not been a teacher from a private or parochial school on the NCTE membership. So has there been any in the last 84 years? If I was a betting woman, I know what I would bet. So with the proposal before you, there's an opportunity to change this. It is my hope that board members will vote based on the merit of the proposal and nothing else. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Deborah?
Thank you, Sherry. And we've talked a lot about this and really appreciate how much thought and work you've put into it. I just want to say I'm voting against it, and I think it's because I feel like it's more accurate to say we have always had the opportunity to have non-NSEA teachers applying, because there's always been the appointment of 2 members to that committee that were appointed by NDE, and NDE could have at any time had a non-NSEA person in there. I think that all it requires is intentionality on behalf of the NDE staff to market the opportunity differently and pursue, be more intentional about it. I don't believe that it takes a policy rewriting. And as I said, they have always had trouble filling those 2 slots. So to make it even more difficult by saying if you're a member of the NSEA, you can't have one of those slots, I feel like it's counterproductive. And I feel like it's not a bad thing to have people that are on the committee that are not members of NSEA, but saying that they can't be nominated in those positions, I think limits us. And when there hasn't been a problem that anyone has come forward and said needed to be fixed. So I personally would like to see us be more intentional about those 2 NDE appointed positions and see what we can do to market those better rather than making a policy change. So I'm just going to vote against it, but I appreciate your bringing it forward and all the hard work that you've done.
Lisa?
I have a question. This is, like I had said last month, I didn't really know much about this organization. And so my question is for the commissioner, would you agree that those 2 spots have been difficult to fill in the past?
I don't know that I don't know that that's the case. I don't know that it's not the case either. So
Commissioner, could we bring forth Mr. Dirksen?
Sure.
Since this is in his department?
You bet.
Sorry, Brad, always in the hot seat.
But I will say that I heard that directly from the immediate past president of NACD, who's been involved with NACD for a long time, that we've had openings in those positions for many years, even if we don't have one right now. So thank you.
Mr. Dirksen.
Hi, Brad Dirksen, Administrator of the Office of Accreditation, Certification, and Approval. I understand the question is, have the NCTE state boarded appointed positions been difficult to fill in the past? I think
That is the question,
okay.
yes.
As part of our procedures at the department, we ask for nominations from the State Board of Education prior to the appointments. We ask for recommendations and to kind of ask for applications to get applicants. We haven't had a substantial number of applicants for those positions. So what department staff has done is to look at the record of the board in regards to board recognized teachers, whether that's a student or a teacher of the year or other board recognized positions, and move forward those teachers into recommendations for NCT positions. That's been the general practice of the board, or the general practice of the staff.
Thank you for your response on that. And thank you, Sherry, for bringing this to our attention. I think one of the things that I hear again and again is that we want to keep politics out of our education. And I think this is one small, tiny baby step in doing that and keeping it a little more fair across the board and nonpartisan. So thank you for bringing this nonpartisan approach to our education.
Deb?
So I guess I take a little bit of concern that we talk about the NSEA as being a political entity when it's a teachers union that 90% of its efforts are to work on behalf of supporting public schools and teachers. And they certainly support candidates also on both sides of the aisle. And so I hate to consider them a political organization. They are a labor union. Labor unions, just by the nature of themselves, have to be advocates for themselves. But I also want to point out something that we just heard Brad say is, so in the most recent years, he has made an effort to reach out to, I know he reached out to a Teacher of the Year. Well, many of our Teachers of the Year are NSEA members, and so that would not have been able to be an NDE appointee if this policy were in place. So I feel like we can always find non-NSEA appointments and approve them, but to say we're going to leave the labor union representing our teachers out of the discussion is something that I have a concern with. So,
Would you be willing, Lisa? Sorry, would you be willing to disclose how much you took from the NSEA?
I think we need to keep our comments germane to this issue. Any other questions or comments? Well, I am looking forward to helping volunteer some names. I didn't realize that board, I mean, maybe I missed it, Brad.
Yeah,
you know, sometimes it's crazy being on here, and we do get a lot of emails. So I look forward to bringing forth names for you. Sherry, you had one more comment?
Yes, I would say the same thing. I would comment that. But one more comment. I didn't bring up the percentages and how I came up with those of you that are watching video, but the allocation I came up with was based on the 27,000 teachers in our state and about how many belong to NSEA, which is about 70%. And it's, can't think of the word I'm supposed to use. Information, proprietary information, so I don't have the exact amounts. And that would leave about 30% that are not NCTE members or are not NSEA members. And so the allocation came up with was 11, so 11 for NSEA, so they would be assured a large percentage, 11 members, and the 5 seemed like a reasonable allocation of others, because that correlates to the 30% of the teachers in our state. So this proposal is just an assurance that this allocation will be available and promoted, and so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Any board members who haven't spoken on this issue and would like to? Okay. The motion is to approve the revised NCTE organizational policies to take effect July 1st, 2025. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Neary,
No.
Penner,
Yes.
Christensen,
No.
Renner,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Douglas,
No.
4 yes, 4 no.
The motion is lost. Is there a motion on item 7.3.b?
Okay. I move to approve plans of correction for Rule 10, 14, and 18 school systems and interim program schools.
It is moved and seconded to approve plans of correction for Rule 10, 14, and 18 school systems and interim program schools. Is there any discussion on this motion? The motion is to approve plans of correction for Rule 10, 14, and 18 school systems and interim program schools. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
8 yes.
Okay, the affirmative has it, and the motion to approve plans of correction for Rule 10, 14, and 18 school systems and interim program schools is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.3.c?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to approve non-public schools for 2025-26.
It is moved and seconded to approve non-public schools for 2025 through 2026. Is there any discussion on this motion? The motion is to approve non-public schools for 2025 through 2026. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve non-public schools for 2025-2026 is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.3.d?
Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve interim program schools for 2025 through 2026. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay. The motion is to approve interim program schools for 2025-2026. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve interim program schools for 2025-2026 is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.3.e?
Yes, I move to approve the pilot process for cooperating teacher qualifications in the area of world language.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the pilot process for cooperating teacher qualifications in the area of world language. Is there any discussion on the motion? No? Okay. Once again, just glad to see us innovating in the proposals. Yeah, this is great. So. The motion is to approve the pilot process for cooperating teacher qualifications in the area of world language. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Christensen,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve the pilot process for cooperating teacher qualifications in the area of world language is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.3.f?
Yes, I move to approve the NDE Model Behavioral Intervention Policy.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the NDE Model Behavioral Intervention Policy. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Liz?
I think if it's possible to address the question.
Okay, so what I think you would like to do is call Dr. Rita forward, and
Yes.
would you ask her your question when she gets up here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Zainab Rida, Student Services Officer. Happy to answer any question you may have.
Thank you. I just thought it was fair to address the question that came up in public comments. So could you speak a little bit about, is a buddy a child or an adult, and is this a best practice, and how did this come to be in the model policy?
Absolutely, thank you. What we mean by a designated buddy is a peer support, and it is best practice that peer support foster a sense of belonging and encouraging positive social interaction, helping the students to feel connected and respond to the questions during the transitioning.
I guess my follow-up would be if a student is removed from a room because of dangerous behavior and they're reintegrated, that is done, I'm assuming, but you can clarify, that children's safety, student safety is taken into effect when a peer or buddy is assigned?
If you go, I'm going to refer it to the model policy, page 4 of 5. So there are process, and so this would become like pretty much the last step in order to transition after, make sure that there's a safe transition, including even like through that. Involving the parents and communicating with parents. So during the transition, and they want to make sure that everything it's clear. If you look at the one of the session, it's stated that including also an adult, a trusted adult, to be there, and if there is. This is not like required, and if there is a peer support, that the student feel comfortable with that student in order to respond to the questions.
Thank you for answering those questions.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Rita, to just clarify, our model policy would not put another student in a situation that would endanger the physical or any type of their health?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Can you turn on your microphone?
Yes, it does say it may include. So I mean, I think that may is big in here. You're just giving some people ideas as to what they could do. So just so the public knows, it says may, and I think that's.
Thank you, Sherry, for mentioning
Thank you
that.
for
Yes.
And once again, Dr. Rita, this is a model policy, so that means that schools can use this to write their own. Am I correct in understanding that?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
So the schools, they can go above and beyond or can explain it more as long that they have all the elements that included in this model policy.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? Lisa?
I would like to say how much I appreciate the work you've done, because I know we've all had lots of different suggestions and things for you to include and take out and whatnot. And so you've done a good job listening and really getting this to a place where our local school districts definitely have local control in this matter. And so, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. The motion is to approve the NDE Model Behavioral Intervention Policy. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
8 yes.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve the NDE Model Behavioral Intervention Policy is adopted. Agenda item 7.3.g is a discussion item. Board members, are there any questions or discussion on, I'm going to actually combine 7.3g and 7.3h because they both involve Rule 11 waivers. Is there any discussion? Board member Jones, did you have, I thought you had said.
Yes, I guess the only thing that I would say that these waivers have been coming up quite often, and it deals with certified teachers, the shortage of certified teachers to work with our birth through 3-year-olds. And so I have brought this up several times and will continue and would like the Rules and Regulations Committee to at least discuss this, and maybe I'd like to see a movement on this, because I think we're going to continue to have a shortage in this area of birth through age 3, and how do we best serve them, and requiring the person working with them to be a certified teacher. Just in my opinion, I don't see that as being necessary. There's a lot of traits that they need. They need so many traits that are important to a provider of care for birth through age 3. Through age 3. But I don't think teacher certification is one of them. So I would encourage the Rules and Regulations Committee to take a look at this, and Mr. Dirksen and his department, just for the reasons, I guess, that I stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie, I know you're the Rules Chair. May I speak to this since I'm on the committee? Okay. Okay, so I did look, because I do remember our early childhood director coming to the Rules Committee, and Ms. Hobson came in just this February 2025, and there is, I looked back then in our minutes for that meeting and the agenda, and it did state that the initial draft of proposed Rule 11 revisions was to be brought late spring 2025. So I anticipate that we'll see something in rules at our June one, since we didn't see it at this one. So yeah, so just so you know, I did look that up, because I know you had a question about that. So any other comments on items 7.3G and 7.3H, because they are both Rule 11 waivers? Okay. Agenda item 7.3.I. Members, are there any questions or discussion on this? Agenda item 7.3.J. Any questions or comments on this item? Okay. 7.3.K. Board members, are there any questions or discussion on this item? No, a lot of these things are discussed in the committee, and we appreciate the committee doing this work. 7.3.L. Board members, are there any questions or discussion on this item? Oh, okay, Lisa?
Yeah, Yeah, I was thrilled to look at the data, and I know there are going to be people from the district or from the school are going to be coming in next month to talk about the data and what attributed to their data. They went up significantly in literacy from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. But another area that I keep hearing more about is chronic absenteeism. And that's a question that I've had in my own brain is why do we have so many more students being absent now than ever before? And they've actually made quite a few gains in that area. And so I'm really excited to hear from people from their school about what they did in their school. And it sounds like it was relatively low cost as well. And so we have that to look forward to next month.
Yeah, I am on the same page as you. I loved reading this, and I just want to congratulate the folks at Asante Elementary and the NDE staff that worked together with them, and to go from need support to excellent in such a short time really does speak to the care and dedication of everyone involved, and certainly the parents and everyone else in the community. So this was a great thing to read, and I look forward to seeing and learning more about how they did it.
Oh, Deborah.
And I ditto what Lisa said and appreciate that you said that, and the same with you. And I also want to, I know Dr. Vargas is not in the room, but I was told by Andrea that she can hear us talking. She's out in the hall. And I just want to say, oh, I saw the wave. Big kudos to Dr. Vargas, who is just played a very significant role in helping make tremendous improvements. So that's all. Thank you.
And I don't get to talk to the Planning Evaluation Committee as a whole. So since you're all here right now, my only question is, what supports will be put in place when, if Asante Elementary is removed from the priority school list, excuse me, what supports will be put in place to ensure that we continue to see progress and not regression? So I look forward to hearing that. I don't know, maybe you've already discussed that in committee?
Well, I am preparing my question list. I have 5 right now, and that's one of them, because we'll want to make sure that's in place. So having visited Asante and having been in this discussion for a couple years, it's very dear to my heart that we continue to see this improvement sustained. And so I am, in June, when they come for their presentation, I will have questions ready. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the work you guys are doing on that and representing us and getting those questions answered. So thank you. Any further discussion on 7.3.L? Okay. Item 7.4, Chair Maggie Douglas will report on behalf of the Rules and Regulations Committee meeting.
All right, the Rules and Regulations Committee reports on the April 3rd, 2025 meeting of the committee. Members present were Chair Maggie Douglas, Vice Chair Liz Renner, Elizabeth Tegmeyer, and Kirk Penner. Committee members reviewed the report on rules and committee report. Committee members asked for staff to contact the governor's office to expedite the approval of Rule 21 certification and Rule 24 endorsements. Committee members also asked if staff could note on the rules report which rules are being considered for revision versus repeal. NDE staff provided information on proposed revisions of Rule 15, regulations and procedures for English learner programs in Nebraska schools, in response to the recently approved Nebraska ESSA plan. The committee recommended proceeding with the revisions and moving forward with a hearing draft. NDE staff provided an update to the committee on proposed revisions of Rule 20 regulations for the approval of educator preparation programs. The committee will continue to discuss this topic. NDE staff provided information on proposed revisions of Rule 86, regulations and procedures for public school breakfast program reimbursement to match current NDE processes and remove reference to outdated forms. The committee recommended proceeding with the revisions and moving forward with a hearing draft. This concludes the Rules and Regulations Committee report. Maggie Douglas, Chair.
Are there any questions on the Rules and Regulations Committee report? All right, item 8 is additional business. Is there a motion on item 6.4.b?
Yes, I move to approve the continuation grant for CDA credential, CDA representing the Child Development Associate Credential Navigator.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the continuation grant for CDA Credential Navigator. Is there any discussion on this motion? Sherry?
Yes, Madam President. I have some questions for Ms. Hobson.
Ms. Hobson, could you come front? Sherry?
Thank you, Melody. I appreciate you coming up here. This Child Development Associate Credentials was very new to me. I'd never heard of it before. So as I read this, I thought, okay, I've got some more questions, and maybe the board members would benefit from this as well as the public would benefit from this. And it might even give some information out for people to hear about this. But one of them, am I correct in my understanding that this was privately funded for 1 year?
My name is Melody Hobson. I'm the administrator for the Office of Early Childhood. I didn't say that when I sat down, but yes, it was.
Okay. And what entity funded this?
This was part of the RESPECT grant, and RESPECT stands, it's an acronym. But it was funded through the Buffett Fund, I believe.
Okay. Is it typical that private funding would be such a short duration? Because if we only do this 1 year, then it's going to have to be picked up by somebody else. Or, is this typical for just a short 1 year duration? That kind of surprised me.
I really can't answer that because I don't know the realm of all the private money. But for this, the grant was, the actual RESPECT grant was for several years. And this was with some partnership within the Buffett Early Childhood Institute, which is different than the fund, and the university and Department of Education and several colleges. So this is just part of it.
Okay. And so they wouldn't continue, with it being such a short funding, I guess we would have to request more. Has there ever been requested for more extension of it to find out how it works and are we seeing gains and stuff? Do we ever make a request for additional private funding with something like this?
That is possible to do. For this one, the grant was ending, and it's now in a no-cost extension. So the things that are being funded were already created before the end of the period.
Okay.
So yes, it is possible. It is possible
to ask for private funding extension. Okay. And that is, I think that would be a great idea on this before putting it out for the taxpayers to pay for this. How was the CDA credential managed prior to having a navigator person?
Individuals who chose to pursue a CDA did it based on just there was no significant assistance with that. It was kind of historically, they contact the Council for Professional Recognition. They look at their website. They try to figure out what they need to do. They have to do all the legwork themselves, and as working professionals, sometimes that's very, very difficult. And there are a number of people who didn't even know that it existed prior to the navigator.
So for the public, like a CDA credential, how would that benefit an individual? Like, how does it line up with, it's prior to associate degree,
Yes.
correct? So how would this benefit an individual? Can you give some examples of?
Yeah. It is prior to an associate. It is something that can be added, kind of as a stepping stone to get the associate degree. It is something that would meet the requirements for a Rule 11 para. It is something that is included in the legislation for the child care tax credit, readiness tax credit. It is one of the things that originally, that was the basic education that was required. With the revision of the tax credit, it's no longer the basic floor, but it does add some additional points so that it can help support, it can increase the amount of the child care tax credit. It is something that is really, that Head Start has historically liked to have their teachers do. Nationally, there is a requirement that half of the Head Start teachers have a bachelor's degree, but for those who don't, this is a really good option for them to start their education.
Okay. Okay, and do we know at this point how many CDA credentialed people actually go on to earn an associate's degree or a teacher certification? Do we have any information at this point?
We don't have in Nebraska. Our systems don't match up enough, and we do not have permission from those CDA graduates to follow them and to compare them with other databases at this point.
Okay. And so maybe the last thing, so this $130,000 would be to pay the person, and then their travel expenses going to, that's what that would be for?
Yes.
But again, we could look for private funding. We could request that. If this wouldn't go through, we could ask for a continuation of private funds if.
We could, there would be a lapse in the services because the grant ends at the end of May, and the next one will start June 1st. And so if we were able to do that, it would be probably several months before we could take this back to the board. And probably at that time, we'd be starting over looking for a different person to be the CDA navigator.
Okay. Thank you for your patience in answering all my questions.
May I ask one follow-up question? So my question is, when the navigator was hired for this position, was it communicated to them that this was on a one-year funding?
Yes.
Okay, so they understood it
Yes.
had the potential to be a temporary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Melody. Okay. Okay, the motion is to approve the continuation grant for CDA Credential Navigator. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Douglas,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
No.
Renner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Penner,
No.
Tegmeyer,
No.
Jones,
No.
4 yes, 4 no.
The motion fails. The next items on the agenda are items 9.1 and 9.2. These are information items and written reports for the board. Agenda item 10, for the good of the order, this section of the agenda is intended for board members to offer informational observations of the work of the state board. Board members may make brief announcements about attendance at future events for the purpose of informing other board members. No business or motions or suggested actions of the board may be offered at this point in the agenda, nor should board members engage in substantive discussion about other agenda items or introduce new agenda items. Last night, I was reminded, and this morning at breakfast, that this is the season of our career and technical organizations state conventions. So right now we have FFA members in town, and the kids are having a great time, and we're happy. They actually weren't that loud, they just have a later bedtime, I think, than me. But I know that lots of our CTOs are busy. Katie Graham and her staff are busy with all of that, and there are opportunities to attend those for board members. So just wanted to bring that up. Ms. Jones.
May I add one more? And Skills USA, I believe, is next week, is it, in Grand Island?
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to
Yes.
attending the Skills USA. So any other board members that might want to see, they're doing so many good things in the CTE arena. So we're going to welcome them to Grand Island next week.
Any other items? Okay. Thank you to those who attended in person and who tuned into the broadcast. The next meetings of the State Board of Education are scheduled for June 5th and 6th, 2025 in Lincoln, Nebraska. The April 4th, 2025 State Board meeting is adjourned.